Bear grabbed the baby right by the road, and then something shocking happened. Sometimes, wild animals behave in completely unpredictable ways. This huge bear grabbed a small child right by the roadside, and the reason why shocked everyone. 25-year-old Stephen was driving home after a long, exhausting trip in his trusty old pickup truck. Eager to surprise his parents, he hoped to arrive much earlier than they were expecting. After spending the entire day driving, fatigue was starting to weigh heavily on Stephen. His eyelids grew heavier with each passing mile, and he struggled to keep his eyes open against an overwhelming urge to sleep. All he could think about was reaching the nearest town, where he could grab a bite, enjoy a hot coffee, and finally get some much-needed rest. Determined to reach his family as quickly as possible, Stephen pushed on despite his exhaustion. As he neared the next settlement, he was forced to slam on the brakes suddenly. The sight before him left him utterly stunned. A massive brown bear stood in the middle of the deserted road, blocking the path of his truck. But the most terrible thing was that the massive jaws of the predator were clutching a very tiny child. At first, the driver thought that he had imagined all this because of insomnia. He rubbed his eyes, but the terrible vision did not disappear. Then Stephen felt a chill of horror. He knew very well that he had almost no chance in a fight against such a dangerous and fierce forest predator, and he had no weapon with him. But he couldn't just abandon the defenseless baby to fate even if the child had almost no chance of being saved. To the driver's utter amazement, the bear's gaze was not aggressive or threatening at all. On the contrary, in his eyes, Stephen could read only sadness and a plea for help. Carefully releasing the child from its mouth and placing him on the ground, the beast slowly retreated to the dark thicket of the nearest forest as if calling on the person to act immediately. Stephen hurried to the baby and was horrified to discover that he was unconscious and barely breathing. The child was very pale, and his clothes were completely wet, which Stephen found extremely odd as it was clearly ordinary water, not saliva. At the same time, there were no marks on the baby from the massive jaws of the bear, which meant the predator was not going to harm him. Without wasting a second of precious time, Stephen rushed to his car to get a first aid kit, and at the same time, contacted the emergency services, begging them to send an ambulance as soon as possible. The baby was very small. It looked like he was only a few months old. Stephen tried to act carefully so as not to harm the infant. The baby was shivering from the cold, so the first thing Stephen did was take off all his wet clothes and wrap him in a towel that he had in the car. The baby soon warmed up and was breathing almost normally, to Stephen's great relief. Now, all that was left was to wait. Fortunately, an ambulance arrived a few minutes later and immediately took the baby to the hospital to check that his life was not in danger. Stephen calmed down a little, but he could not understand where the bear and the baby had come from on the road and where his parents had gone. Suddenly, the man heard a strange, drawn-out sound from the forest. He turned around and saw the same bear, who was clearly trying to get his attention. At that moment, Stephen realized that he had no choice. Obeying a mysterious inner call, he decided to follow the beast straight into the thicket of the forest. The man didn't want to think that the bear was trying to lure him into a trap. He simply followed the animal until a small lake appeared ahead. Stephen looked closer and saw a car that was right in the lake, and only a small part of it was visible from the water. It became obvious that the bear was leading the man to this very place. Stephen rushed into the water and quickly swam to the car. There was no one in the front seat, but in the back seat lay an unconscious woman who had, by some miracle, not yet drowned. Stephen grabbed the woman and swam to shore with her, thinking along the way that she was the mother of the baby who had just been taken away by ambulance. Incredibly, the bear was the first to discover the car that had fallen into the lake and rescued the child inside, then brought Stephen to the scene. Having climbed ashore, Stephen made sure that the woman was breathing, although her entire body was covered with abrasions and bruises. This time, Stephen decided not to delay. He put the woman in the back seat of his car and rushed to the same hospital where the ambulance had taken the baby. At the hospital, doctors immediately took the woman for an urgent examination, and Stephen was finally able to breathe a sigh of relief. The man knew his parents were waiting for him, but he still bought a big bag of fruits and took it to the place where he had encountered the bear with the baby. Stephen left the fruits near the forest as a token of gratitude for the bear, and then he drove to his parents' house. A few days later, Lisa, the mother of the rescued child, called Stephen to express her heartfelt gratitude for his invaluable help. Through tears, she thanked him, saying that without his kindness, both she and her son would likely not have survived. Lisa explained that on that fateful day, she had been driving to another city with her young son when she lost control of the car, causing it to plunge into the lake. Desperately, they struggled to escape the sinking car when, out of nowhere, a bear appeared and seized the baby. Lisa screamed in terror, convinced the bear would harm her child, but she was unable to do anything as a severe blow to her head during the accident caused her to lose consciousness. Upon learning the truth, Stephen smiled and insisted that the real thanks belonged not to him, but to the big brown bear. The bear had not only brought the baby to the road, but also guided Stephen to the submerged car. In doing so, the bear became a true guardian angel for the child and his mother. This unforgettable event left a lasting impression on Stephen, serving as a constant reminder that even the wild, untamed forces of nature can demonstrate extraordinary acts of kindness and selflessness. What an incredible story! If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, don't forget to hit that like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so please leave a comment below. See you in the next video.